The brain is supposed to help you survive. It monitors danger, regulates mood, produces the chemicals that make pleasure and connection and meaning feel real. But sometimes the system doesn't work the way it's designed to. Sometimes the alarm never shuts off. Sometimes the chemistry runs dry. Sometimes the mind begins to fracture under weight it was never built to carry. What people call mental illness is what happens when those systems break. Not metaphorically, not as an excuse, but physically, measurably, in ways that reshape every hour of every day. You're about to understand exactly what that looks like. Depression drains the color out of life before you notice it's gone. Your brain produces chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, that allow you to feel pleasure, motivation, and connection. When those systems begin to malfunction, everything becomes harder in ways that don't make immediate sense. You wake up exhausted after 10 hours of sleep. Food tastes like nothing. The things that once made you feel like yourself, music, people, small routines, the particular satisfaction of finishing something, go quiet one by one until you can't quite remember what they sounded like. Your brain tells you nothing will ever get better, and you believe it. Not because you're weak, but because depression doesn't feel like sadness. It feels like emptiness. Sadness has a reason, a shape, a story you can point to. Depression just exists, heavy and constant, even when your life looks fine from the outside, even when nothing has gone wrong, even when there is no reason at all. People tell you to think positive, go for a walk, find something to be grateful for. But depression isn't a bad mood you can redirect with effort. It's your brain physically struggling to generate the chemistry that makes feeling anything possible. Thoughts slow down. Decisions that were once simple become overwhelming. Getting out of bed can feel like climbing a mountain with no summit in sight. You withdraw from people, not because you want isolation, but because pretending to be okay takes energy you no longer have. Conversations feel like performances. Smiling feels like lying. Over time, untreated depression reshapes how you see yourself and the world. It convinces you that the numbness is who you actually are, that joy was always temporary, that hope is a story other people tell themselves. The disorder doesn't arrive with a dramatic moment. It moves slowly, quietly, steadily, eroding the parts of you that used to reach for things, narrowing the distance between who you were and who you've become, until one day you realize you've forgotten what feeling alive used to be like, and you can't quite remember when it stopped. The version of yourself that wanted things, reached for things, felt things, that person didn't leave dramatically. They just went quiet. Generalized anxiety disorder turns normal worry into a permanent alarm system that never shuts off. Your brain treats ordinary situations as emergencies, flooding your body with stress hormones when there is no actual danger. Everyone worries sometimes about money, health, relationships, the future. But anxiety disorder makes you worry about everything, all the time, including things that haven't happened and probably never will. You lie awake at 3 a.m., building disaster scenarios out of nothing. You replay conversations for hours, certain you said something wrong, certain people noticed, certain you've damaged something that can't be repaired. Your mind moves from one fear to the next without pause, constructing worst-case outcomes from ordinary moments. A delayed text becomes proof of something broken. A headache becomes something serious. A pause in a conversation becomes evidence that something is wrong with you. Physically, your body stays permanently tense. Your shoulders ache. Your stomach cramps without explanation. Your heart races in quiet rooms for no clear reason. You feel exhausted because your nervous system believes it's protecting you from threats that don't exist, running a full emergency response to a danger that lives entirely inside your head. Simple decisions become paralyzing because every option feels like it could lead somewhere catastrophic. Should you send that message? What if they misread it? What if they pull away? What if the silence means something? The disorder steals your ability to rest because your brain has forgotten how to tell the difference between actual danger and imagined disaster. People say, calm down, stop overthinking, just relax. But that's like telling someone with a broken leg to walk normally. Over time, the constant internal tension wears you down. You begin avoiding anything that spikes the worry, conversations, plans, decisions, and the world gets smaller, quieter, more threatening, not less. Anxiety doesn't protect you from the things you fear. It makes sure you never stop thinking about them. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a condition where your brain struggles to regulate focus, impulse, and energy. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, self-control, and follow-through, develops more slowly or functions differently. This means you want to pay attention. You want to sit still, finish what you started, keep track of time, but your brain won't cooperate. People assume ADHD means you can't focus on anything, but that's wrong. You can hyper-focus on things that genuinely interest you for hours, losing track of time completely, forgetting to eat, forgetting to stop. The problem is, you can't choose what gets your attention. Boring tasks feel physically painful to begin. Not frustrating, not inconvenient, physically resistant in a way that willpower can't push through. Your mind drifts during conversations, even when you care deeply about the person talking. You forget appointments, misplace things, leave projects half-finished. Not because you're careless, but because your brain doesn't produce enough dopamine to make follow-through feel rewarding. Impulsivity moves faster than thought. You interrupt people mid-sentence before you meant to. You say something and instantly wish you could take it back. You make decisions, spending money, quitting things, agreeing to things, walking away from things that you didn't plan and can't fully explain afterward. Restlessness lives in your body. You tap, fidget, shift in your seat. Feel like your own skin doesn't quite fit. Time feels unreliable and slippery. You underestimate how long everything takes. Then suddenly a deadline is here and you're not ready and you genuinely don't understand how that happened again. At school, at work, the labels accumulate. Unfocused, lazy, irresponsible, careless. The assumptions pile up into a version of you that doesn't match what you know is happening inside. But inside, you are trying harder than anyone around you realizes. The exhausting part isn't the distraction. It's the gap between knowing exactly what you need to do and watching yourself fail to do it anyway. Not because you don't care, but because the bridge between intention and action doesn't work the same way for you, and no amount of trying harder has ever managed to fix that. You're not failing at something easy. You're exhausted by something the people around you will never fully have to understand. Obsessive-compulsive disorder traps your mind in a loop it can't break by itself. Your brain gets stuck on a fear, an image, a what-if scenario that won't release its grip no matter how hard you try to push it away. These are called obsessions, unwanted thoughts that invade your mind repeatedly, not because you invited them, but because something in your brain's circuitry keeps firing the same alarm over and over. Maybe you're terrified of contamination, that your hands carried something dangerous, that you touched something, and now someone will get sick because of you. Maybe you're convinced you left the stove on and the house is burning right now while you're standing here doing nothing. Maybe violent images flash through your mind and horrify you, and the horror itself becomes part of the trap. Because the more you try not to think about them, the louder they get. That's where compulsions come in. Your brain demands you do something to make the fear stop, and so you do. You wash your hands until they crack and bleed. You check the door locks 5, 10, 15 times before you can leave. You count, tap, arrange objects in a specific order, repeat phrases silently inside your head. The rituals feel like the only way to prevent disaster, and for a moment, a very brief moment, they work. The anxiety drops. You breathe. Then it returns, louder than before, demanding you do it again. People joke about being so OCD when they want things organized. But real OCD is not a preference for neatness. It is torture. You know the rituals are irrational. You know checking the stove 10 times makes no logical sense. But the fear is so overwhelming that stopping feels impossible. Hours disappear. Your hands hurt. Your mind exhausts itself. And the disorder tightens its grip because the compulsion taught your brain that the only way to feel safe is to keep performing the ritual forever in increasingly specific and demanding ways. OCD doesn't make you careful. It makes you a prisoner to thoughts you never chose and rituals that never end. Post-traumatic stress disorder happens when your brain gets stuck in survival mode after experiencing something terrifying. A car crash, violence, abuse, war, a sudden loss of control. Any event where your life felt genuinely at risk can rewire the way your brain processes fear and safety. Normally, after something frightening ends, your nervous system settles. The event gets filed away as memory, something that happened, something that is now in the past. With PTSD, that process breaks. Your brain keeps replaying the trauma as if it's still unfolding in real time, treating the memory not as information about something that happened once, but as evidence that the danger is ongoing. The memory doesn't behave like a memory. It behaves like a live threat. Flashbacks aren't like normal recollections where you picture the past from a distance. They are vivid, physical re-experiences. A smell, a sound, a random sight can pull you back instantly without warning. Your heart pounds, your breathing accelerates, your body floods with adrenaline, and for those seconds or minutes, you are genuinely convinced the danger is happening again. Right now, in this room, in this moment. Nightmares jolt you awake with your chest heaving. You become hypervigilant, constantly scanning every room, every crowd, every face for what might go wrong next. Loud sounds make you flinch. Crowds feel suffocating. You avoid anything connected to the trauma, which sometimes means cutting off entire sections of your own life. Places, people, conversations, anything that carries even a trace of the original fear. Emotions become unpredictable. Anger erupts over small things. Numbness settles in between the surges, flattening everything that should feel like something. Concentration disappears because your brain is too busy monitoring for danger to focus on anything else. People around you don't understand why you can't relax in places that are clearly safe, but your brain isn't reading the room. It's reading the worst moment you've ever lived through on an endless loop in a language only your body understands. PTSD doesn't steal the memory of what happened. It steals the part of you that knew how to feel safe anywhere at all. Bipolar disorder sends your brain swinging between extreme emotional states you didn't choose and can't predict. There are two poles, mania and depression, and you cycle between them in patterns that can last days, weeks, or months. During a manic episode, your brain floods with energy and confidence that feels almost superhuman. You sleep 2 hours and wake up buzzing, ideas arriving faster than you can write them down. You talk fast, jump between thoughts, feel like you can accomplish anything. Risky decisions suddenly seem brilliant. Not reckless, genuinely brilliant. In a way, your mind can fully justify in the moment. You might spend money you don't have, start 5 projects at once, reach out to people at 3 a.m. because whatever just occurred to you cannot possibly wait. Colors seem brighter. Connections feel profound. Sitting still becomes impossible. But mania burns too hot. Your thoughts accelerate faster than you can organize them. Irritability spikes when people can't follow. Sometimes the energy tips into paranoia, into grandiosity, into moments where reality starts to blur at the edges and you're the only one who doesn't notice. Then the crash comes. The manic high collapses into a depressive low where all that energy drains away completely. You can barely get out of bed. Everything that felt urgent and vivid and possible now feels pointless. The contrast makes the depression heavier. Because you remember what having energy felt like. You remember the version of yourself that was convinced everything was possible, and the distance between that person and the one lying here now is crushing. Bipolar disorder exhausts you with its unpredictability. You never know which version of yourself will wake up tomorrow. Relationships strain because people can't keep pace with the shifts. Plans collapse during depressive episodes. The consequences of manic decisions, money spent, relationships strained, commitments made in a state you can't replicate, haunt you when the clarity returns. This isn't having mood swings or being emotional. Your brain chemistry swings between extremes without asking permission. You're not unstable. Your brain is. And you're the one living inside it through every swing, never knowing when the next one comes. Panic disorder makes your body sound a false alarm that feels exactly like dying. Your brain's fear center, the amygdala, misfires and triggers a full survival response when there is no actual danger. A panic attack arrives suddenly, without warning. Your heart pounds so hard you're convinced something is structurally wrong with it. Your chest locks tight. Breathing goes mechanical, like you've forgotten how to do something you've done every second of your life without thinking. Sweat breaks across your back. Your hands go numb. Dizziness tilts the room. You're certain something catastrophic is happening. A heart attack, a stroke, a total loss of control. Every sensation amplifies the terror. And the terror intensifies the sensations, and the loop peaks within 10 minutes before slowly fading, leaving you drained, shaken, and uncertain about what just happened inside your own body. But the real trap isn't the attack itself. After the first one, you develop a second fear, the fear of having another. You start avoiding places where it happened before. Grocery stores, highways, crowded rooms, anywhere that feels difficult to leave. You scan your own heartbeat, your own breathing, watching for the sign that it's starting again. The monitoring makes it likely to start. Your world shrinks. Some people stop leaving the house entirely, not afraid of the world, but no longer trusting their own body to stay calm inside it. You're not afraid of open spaces. You're afraid of yourself, of what your own nervous system might do at any moment without your permission. Panic disorder doesn't just steal moments. It makes your own body feel like the most dangerous place you've ever been. Social anxiety disorder transforms ordinary interactions into performances where failure feels inevitable. Your brain treats social situations as genuine threats, flooding your body with fear responses designed for actual danger. Walking into a room full of people feels like stepping onto a stage where everyone is watching, judging, waiting for you to make a mistake. Before you speak, your mind floods with worst-case scenarios. What if you say something wrong? What if your voice shakes, or your face goes red? What if they can tell something is off? The fear arrives before the interaction. Your heart races, your hands tremble. Sweat soaks through your shirt, and then you're so focused on monitoring your own reactions that you can't think clearly, which causes you to stumble over words, go blank, or become the version of yourself you were desperate to hide. After the interaction ends, your brain replays every moment. It magnifies small mistakes into disasters, convinces you that everyone noticed, assumes they're talking about how awkward you were. You walk away certain you've permanently damaged something. This isn't shyness. Shy people feel nervous but manage to push through. Social anxiety hijacks your entire system, making withdrawal feel like the only rational choice. You start avoiding parties, presentations, phone calls, even conversations you know you have to have. Opportunities disappear because the fear of judgment outweighs everything. The disorder isolates you while convincing you that isolation is safer than risking humiliation. You're not antisocial. You're terrified of being seen, and the more you avoid it, the more that becomes the only version of yourself you know. Eating disorders hijack your relationship with food and twist it into a method of control. Anorexia restricts eating to dangerous levels, driven by an intense fear of weight gain and a perception of your own body that doesn't match what anyone else sees. You look in the mirror and see something the people around you don't see. Every calorie becomes a calculation. Eating feels like failure. Hunger feels like discipline. Your brain convinces you that controlling food is the one thing you can manage when everything else feels too large and too uncertain. Bulimia creates a different loop, eating large amounts, feeling completely out of control, then purging to undo it. The shame arrives immediately, and yet the pattern repeats because the disorder promises relief that doesn't come. Both conditions destroy the body in quiet ways. Your heart weakens, your bones lose density, your hair falls out, your organs struggle to function. But the physical damage hides behind the disorder's logic, invisible to everyone, including the person living inside it. Eating disorders aren't really about food or weight. They're about control, about perfectionism, about trying to make yourself smaller when the world feels too large to exist in at full size. The disorder speaks in your own voice. It sounds like willpower. It sounds like logic. It tells you that letting go means losing the only thing keeping you intact. Even as that thing is quietly taking you apart, recovery feels like giving up the only protection you have, even when that protection is killing you. Schizophrenia fractures how your brain processes reality. Neurotransmitters like dopamine misfire, causing your mind to generate experiences that aren't actually happening while struggling to organize the ones that are. The disorder produces two categories of symptoms. Positive symptoms add things that shouldn't be there. Voices that comment on your actions, criticize you, or issue commands. Visual perceptions of people who don't exist. Sensations on your skin with no physical source. Delusions convince you of things that feel absolutely true. That the government is tracking you. That strangers are coordinating against you. That you've been assigned a specific role in something vast and terrible. These aren't choices or imagination. Your brain genuinely perceives them as real, with the same certainty it perceives everything else. Negative symptoms subtract things that should be there. Emotions flatten until expressing feeling naturally becomes difficult or impossible. Motivation disappears, making basic tasks feel unreachable. Speech becomes disorganized, jumping between unrelated ideas, or stopping entirely because forming a coherent sentence requires more energy than you have. Movies portray schizophrenia as violent and unpredictable, as something to fear from the outside. But most people living with this disorder are far more likely to be frightened than frightening. The real danger is internal. The confusion and terror of not knowing what's real, of not being able to trust your own perceptions, of hearing voices that say terrible things about you and having no reliable way to determine whether any of it is true. You can't verify your own mind. Schizophrenia doesn't change how you see the world. It makes your own mind a place you can no longer trust.